Here we're going to take a brief look at hiding and grouping rows and columns. In a spreadsheet, there may be times when you have calculations occurring in different cells, but you don't want those cells to be visible to the user, so you want to hide them. You can hide rows individually or multiple rows by simply selecting them on the side here. Right-click and then click Hide. You'll notice that these rows disappeared. They're still there, they're just hidden. You can see that the row here says row 7, and then the next row says row 13. To unhide them, you select the row above the hidden cells and the row below the hidden cells. Right-click, then hit Unhide. You can do the same thing for columns. If I wanted to hide price and lead time, I select them both, right-click, and click Hide. Notice that they'll be hidden, columns both C and D in this case. Again, to unhide, select both columns, right-click, and choose Unhide. Grouping works the same way, but it's even more convenient in some ways. You start the same way by selecting the columns that you want to group. And then you go to the Data tab at the top and choose Group. When you do that, it will put a grouping bar here above those columns. It also has a collapsible button. When you click that button, those columns are collapsed into one group. If I click the Expand button, which is this plus sign, then you'll be able to see those columns visibly again. In other words, I can expand or collapse quickly without having to right-click and choose Hide or Unhide. I can ungroup by selecting these columns that are grouped and then clicking Ungroup on the Data tab. Another thing to note is that you can group in multiple layers. So, for instance, let's suppose that I want to select these two columns again, and I will group them. And then, if I select all 5 of these columns and group those, you'll see there are 2 levels of grouping. These numbers over here refer to the level of grouping. If I click number 1, it collapses everything. If I click number 2, it expands the first level. And then if I click number 3, it expands all of the levels. Again, to get rid of the grouping, I can select all of these and choose Ungroup. I can do the same thing with rows. I can select 3 rows here and choose Group. And then I could select 5 or 6 rows here and choose Group again. I can, of course, expand and collapse these individually or as a full group using the numbers at the top. With hiding, you have to right-click, choose Hide or Unhide. Grouping can accomplish the same thing, but it gives you the options to quickly expand or collapse those groupings.